So we have the NFL, we have the Seahawks draft to go to, and we teased it at the very beginning. We'll go from the last pick that they made,
Okay.
round seven in the seventh round, all the way to their first round pick, Greg
Okay.
Zabel.
Right.
So, and we'll give our takes, we'll give our viewpoints, and to see who's special teamer, who may start, who may be useful, who may not. You never know how this goes.
Okay.
So, yeah, ready to go, Kevin?
I am absolutely strapped in, so let's do this.
Right on. So let's start off with round seven, pick 238, wide receiver Ricky White out of University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Saw this kid's tape, not bad, but he screams more special teams guy. But by the way their history goes over in Seattle, he may be a starter at the slot. You never know how this goes. I mean, I don't know if you've seen his tape a lot recently, but he's not a bad player for UNLV.
Well, his problem is that he's got a drop problem,
Yeah,
and so that and wide receiver is a bad combination, and so
very
he's
bad.
going to have to improve that by a wide margin. I think that he could be a special teams guy, and so he all these draft picks I think have a really good shot at making the final roster this year. But
Correct.
if he wants to be a starter or even a guy that comes in special packages, he's going to have to shore up those hands
Yeah.
before any of that is even on the table.
Well, DK had a drop problem over at Ole Miss, but at the same point, I mean, he was also a big guy. He was a big
Right.
target.
Big guy, and he's 6'1", 184, so that's not big.
No, I mean
I'm the
it's
same
big for a
height as
slot
him, and I
receiver.
weigh more than him. So that's not saying a lot right
I
there.
mean, he's a big target for a slot receiver, and this system with Kunkubiak does use the slot receiver a lot, like as in everywhere. So
Well, if
that
he
does
can win the
help.
job and have it so MVS doesn't have to get on the field, then I highly support that.
Jesus, you. Next up, we got a round seven pick 234. Mason Richmond over at Iowa. Big guy.
Yeah, this
Really
is a
big
big guy.
guy.
You know,
And
six
those
five,
Iowa linemen. And those
six
Iowa linemen, yeah.
five. Yeah, if there was anything that Iowa's people know how to do, it's be offensive lineman
Oh,
or
yeah.
defensive lineman for that matter. But
Nebraska, too.
Nebraska too, no question. All that corn and stuff they got going on over there.
Yeah.
But this guy is 6'5", 307 pounds.
Jesus.
So he did miss out on a lot of buffets, it would seem. But
Oh,
his issue is that he's not a technician. Okay, and he needs to work on that. He's not a tremendous athlete, which you would expect out of a guy that's 6'5" and 307 pounds. You don't need him to be a tremendous athlete if you're that big, but you do need him to be able to maneuver wherever the
yeah.
rush
In
is
the
coming
zone
from.
blocking
And
scheme, of
yes,
course.
and that seems like that may be an issue for him. And so he's one of the ones that's really going to have to step it up to me to make this roster.
Next up, we go to round seven, pick 223. Damian Martinez from the University of Miami, running back. This kid can run.
He can.
He can run.
He can run. He can run. His issue seems like he can run, but it's only straightforward.
Not a bad thing.
Sometimes that's a good thing. But
Yeah.
if you got three defenders that are straight ahead of you, you might want to be able to veer off just a little bit. And so he's going to need to show that he can do that. It's not a big thing because the Seahawks running back room doesn't have a whole lot of room for anyone else in it already. To
I
me,
mean, would you say, I mean, we've talked about it before. Do you think this opens up the door for a Kenneth Walker trade?
I do not.
Because, okay, because Sharps is still there. McIntosh is still there, and we saw a little bit of McIntosh last year. And Charbonnet can catch the ball out of the backfield. What would you say is, aside from running straight forward, Damien's biggest strength? Would it be catching the passes out of the backfield?
He is a good guy for that, it would seem. And so if he can bring a little razzmatazz to like I said, if all he can do is run straight ahead, there's no
Okay.
you've got no place on the roster if that's all you can do.
He
And
might end
so
up
he's
being
going
like
to
the
have to
scat
show he can
back.
do other things than that.
Does he remind you of like a Shane Vereen type of guy from the Patriots of years ago?
He does, and so that's not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all. Next up, we go to the 6th round, pick 192. Bryce Cable from the University of Kansas.
Right.
He's another big guy.
6'4", 306 pounds. Not quite as big as we were just talking about,
Yes.
but this guy is a guy that can go laterally, unlike who we just discussed. So he can move east, he can move west, and so this might work out well for him because we all know the Seahawks, even though we'll talk about it in a minute, I'm sure their first round pick, but they need offensive linemen. I think this could work out really well for them.
Do you think he could start potentially at right guard?
He could, and if he were to do that, I think that is it. Right guard, left guard,
Maybe center.
and maybe center. They need assistance in their middle of their offensive line. We all know that.
Correct.
And so if they can get some starters in that middle section, which you're going to get starters, but I mean starters that deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm.
This will work out well for the Seahawks.
And Kansas linemen are not particularly known for being high draft picks.
No.
But
as a matter of fact, I can't think of a single one other than this one.
I can't name one either off the top of my head. But what I did see a little bit, he will move people. He will move people, Bryce. So that is very exciting. We also have the first fullback of the board in quite some time. I cannot pronounce this man's last name, but he's from Alabama. He's a fullback by trade. Robbie, I'm just going to call him Robbie Utz from like the potato chip.
That works for me.
That works for me too.
Utz, we can talk about potato chips. They're outstanding.
They are great chips.
Yes, they are. And so if he could be as outstanding as the potato chips, we are in good shape.
Is he a pass catching fullback? Is he more like, hey, we're going to hit people fullback?
It seems like he could do both of those things.
Which is good.
Which is a good thing.
Yes.
And so it's going to be really interesting. What kind of offensive scheme is the Seahawks going to put it in? Like I said, they've got running backs, one we just talked about.
They got 4 of them now, yeah.
Yeah, and so they're going to have a fullback in there as well. You can't have 3 running backs on the field at the same time, presumably. Maybe they can. But
we'll see where this goes. I mean, they'll get creative. They'll get creative.
And there's a guy that we're going to talk about in a minute also that we can get creative with. And so it'll be real interesting to see how this works out for them.
I'm excited because I love me a good fullback. I love just a big fullback running a face first. Mike Allstott.
Yeah. And so but he is athletic.
Which is good.
Because a lot of big guys, we talked about aren't athletic. They're big. And that's their calling card, but he's big and athletic. So this is something that could really work for them. Forget that he's a later round pick. I think this is something that could really work for
I think he's their fullback because before him, Brady Russell, who's a tight end by trade, was projected to be their fullback, which is you lost me.
Well, you talk about tight end because he was listed as a tight end on some of the press releases that I saw regarding him.
But then when he came to fullback, I was like, "Oh, exciting!"
Right, and so it just goes to show that he's got some presence, he's got some athletic ability, And so this is something that really, really could work.
We go back to we go to Colorado State in the 5th round of pick 166. Torrey Horton,
Okay.
Colorado State.
Okay.
He's a shifty little fellow.
He is.
He's a shifty little fellow, and he might be your punt returner. Not
He
a
might
bad thing.
be. He might be. He might be, and that would be fine. And so, he's got some injury situations that he's going to have to show that he's 100% of.
Yes.
And before that, he was a good player.
Yeah.
Before his injuries, and so if he's 100%, which I assume that he will be, and wide receiver was a need for the Seahawks because they've got guys that are 47 years old out there now, and so they need some youth in that wide receiver room.
Kevin is not a fan of the Cooper Kupp signing.
I am. No, don't. Yes, I'm big time in on the Cooper Kupp signing.
I am too.
And I hope that he shoves it up the Rams' patootie so hard that they can't speak after the game.
Oh, Jesus.
So, you know what I'm saying? And
I know what you're saying.
when the Rams released him, I'm like, please come to the Seahawks.
It was a guarantee.
And show them what they've done to themselves.
We go over to South Bend for Notre Dame. Nose tackle Riley Mills, pick 142 in the 5th round.
Okay.
I've noticed a theme here with these draft picks, and they want to build a bully up here in Seattle.
Right.
They want to build a bully. And I have not seen a lot of Notre Dame film, but what would you say he's a big reason why Notre Dame got to the national title game last year?
He was a huge reason why, and he's also a huge reason why because he was not in the title game, that Notre Dame couldn't do a whole lot once they got there.
Yes.
And so he's saying that he's ahead of schedule. He's not healthy at this point.
No.
And
which is why he dropped.
Which is why he dropped. That's a given. And so because he said he's ahead of schedule and he plans to be at training camp. And if he can do that, this is a guy who's 6'5", 296.
He's a starting nose tackle.
And he could be a starting nose tackle. And that's really not Seahawks need some pass rushers. This is really not that.
No, he's a run stopper.
Right.
Which is you need that too, because
the Seahawks have been tremendously horrible at run stopping.
Which is aside from Jaron Reed, they do not have a pure nose tackle. They don't. Right. They haven't had a pure nose tackle since since Al Woods was here. Which is a while ago.
Yeah, nobody's, beating down the doors remembering his name, so.
No. Yeah. So, I mean, I like a good nose tackle, particularly in the 3-4, because he just eats everything up. And add him with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, you never know, but he could very well start at the nose tackle position.
He could.
He very well could.
All depends, like I said, is he healthy?
Correct.
If he's not, don't press it, and we'll see what we wind up with.
We go to the 3rd round, back to Alabama.
Okay.
This I was intrigued about. Jalen Milroe from the University of Alabama, who was a Heisman frontrunner at one point for the Crimson Tide. 3rd round pick, number 92. What I love about him is he's very Jalen Hurts-like in the regard of he may not have the best arm on the face of the planet, but this guy, he is a faster Jalen Hurts, which is rare.
Right. And if you're going to be an Alabama quarterback, it seems like you need to be able to run the football. That's a calling card. If you can't, then don't go to Alabama. And so this is a guy who he found the end zone.
He did.
Okay, he
He
found the end
did.
zone. Whether he was throwing the football, even though he's not as efficient as that, but he
No.
also scored 20 rushing touchdowns,
Something like that, yeah.
something like that. I've got it written down. Let's see. He had 33. No, I'm wrong. He had 33 rushing touchdowns. Okay,
Oof.
and so that's and this is when we talk about some trick plays and whatever. This is a guy who could be on the field at the same time as Sam Darnold.
Yes,
And
correct.
then off the defenses aren't going to know what in the world to prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
And so
He can
if they
run.
do it that way, I think there's a lot to be gained here. Don't expect him to be taking snaps.
No, I mean, here's where I'm curious with, because Sam Darnold essentially signed here. It says 3 years, but it's a 1-year prove it deal.
Which is exactly what he needs.
Which is what he needs, yes.
That's right. Especially after those last 2 games.
Correct.
He needed to have a 1-year deal where he can show that was just a blip.
Correct. And if Darnold struggles, there is no guarantee that Darnold's going to be the starter the entire season. No guarantee. There is optimism here.
And this is the interesting part to this whole thing, because the trade that the Seahawks made, where they sent Geno Smith to the Raiders.
They got him.
This is the pick right here that they got for that.
Yep.
And so they traded Geno Smith for this guy, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to be real easy to keep track, going forward, of just how well either side did in this maneuver. So,
but he's not the most accurate guy in the world. No. But if there's one thing that he's very well, he has a big arm. He has a really big arm.
Right.
But he's more effective as a running quarterback than anything else.
Right.
Which is, again, not the worst thing in the world.
Right. And he had a 64% completion percentage, but that just means that he didn't throw a lot of deep balls.
No.
That's what
Which
that
is, before you college football fans lose your mind, yes, we are aware that 64% completion percentage in college is not great. But again, it's out. Oh, breaking news from the Department of BS Seahawk News. Where is it? I got to get the breaking news department. The Seahawks have announced they have exercised the 5th-year option for left tackle Charles Cross.
Okay.
That was expected.
Okay. They better not let him go anywhere.
No, they're not going to let him go. There's no way.
No.
There's no way.
I'm relatively sure he was a first-round draft.
He was.
Not too long ago.
He was the product of the Russell Wilson trade.
That's right.
He was picked number 9 overall. That's correct.
So you better not let him, hit the road.
Better not. In the second round, we go to the final 3 picks.
Okay.
Backwards.
Okay.
Round 2, pick number 50, tight end Elijah Arroyo from the University of Miami, Florida. At first, I was like, eh? And
that's what I was saying, too. Tight end, what are we doing here?
And then I saw the tape. I was like, oh.
Okay.
He's big and can run.
6'5", 250 pounds. This is
big tight end
human being right here.
Yes.
And it's kind of interesting that this guy is this big, but his blocking is, for lack of a better word,
not great.
Not great. Okay?
Yes.
And so that's going to, when he's on the field, that's going to tell defenses that this will not be a running play.
Yes.
And so that's the way that's going to work. But as far as tight ends go, when it comes to catching the football, there's not a lot of guys that are better at it than he is. He
was Cam Ward's number 1 target with Miami, by the way.
That's right. That's right.
So if you need anything else to look at, there you go.
Right. And he's got size though, but he's got speed. Okay, he's got athleticism, which is, we said big guy, but he's got athleticism, and so yeah, I was a little reluctant because the Seahawks, let's face it, don't know what they're doing with tight ends.
And years past, no.
In years past, they have not known. Okay, and so I was kind of like, they need receiver and wide receiver. This dude can fill that role, even though he's not a wide receiver.
No.
And so I think this is going to work out. He's going to be a starter. And so what are they going to do with the rest of their room remains to be seen.
Well, Fant's probably being shipped out.
Right. And I was never going yay over Noah Fant, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he can run. I'm very high on AJ Barner from Michigan. Very high on this guy. And they just signed Eric Saubert from the 49ers, who's your third string tight end. If not him, then Robbie Utz, who's your fullback.
Right.
But we'll see. But you can never have enough offense.
No.
In terms of the weaponry, you can't.
No. And so at first I was like, tight end? What?
Huh? Yeah.
And so, as a matter of fact, we were in the chat when we did this, and I was like, I'm not feeling this.
And then we saw the film.
And then, right, because to be quite honest, I had no idea who Elijah Arroyo was before this draft pick. So,
Sean Alexander butched his name so bad.
Well, it's not like this is a hard name to pronounce. I mean, some of these other names, like the one we're getting ready to talk about, a little more difficult to pronounce, I would imagine.
Speaking of weaponry, good Lord. So in the second round, we saw at the end of the first round, we were all like, how is this kid still not being picked yet?
Right.
Which I was stunned because he was recommended as the top safety on the board. And then out of nowhere, the Hawks trade up, and I immediately screamed, they're getting Emin-Wari. Because he drew Cam Chancellor comparisons.
Right. I saw that as well. And so that's,
this kid's a weapon,
to say the least. Gives him a lot to live up to,
defense,
to say the least.
Yes.
And so, but like you're saying, he was right at the top of the board going into the second round.
Mm-hmm.
And Seahawks got him.
They traded up.
Right.
Which they never do.
I expected they would trade back, which they didn't. They traded up here and got a player that wasn't necessarily a need for them. But this guy is a major player. And so they're going to have an excellent secondary.
Correct.
This year. And because
they
were middle of the road in defense, 14th overall. This is going to help that a lot.
Which if you look with the whole being ranked 14th overall in defense was kind of an albatross here because before Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight got inserted in the starting linebacker role, they were in the bottom of the league in defense, and then all of a sudden they were ranked.
They've been for years now.
Before that, but then when Ernest Jones got here, and when Kobe Bryant was inserted as strong safety, Josh Jobe as the nickel corner, and Byron Murphy started to get some better plays and stuff like that, and Tyrese Knight went off. The defense took off, and Emin-Wari is going to help.
He is going to help.
This is your Kyle Hamilton.
That's right. And so it says that he's best near line of scrimmage, which, okay.
Cam Chancellor.
Right. And that he needs to tackle with more consistency, which is kind of weird because if you're playing close on the line of scrimmage, then you're expected to tackle.
However, to cut you off, this kid is a missile.
Right.
This kid's a missile at safety, which is at 6'3", 6'4".
6'3", 220.
That is big for safety.
It is. And
That's
so you're not
giant.
throwing it and he's not the greatest when it comes to deep balls. And so hopefully he's not going to be doing that a whole lot.
Yeah, would you expect Kobe to play the dime safety position? Because
Right.
Emmett Ward is going to start.
Absolutely.
He's going to start at strong safety.
Right.
No way
Yeah.
they don't have him start.
You can mark that down and just chip it in stone right now. It's going
Absolutely.
to happen.
Absolutely. I was so excited when they drafted him. I thought, like, when they traded up, I was like, oh, Emmett Warry's still there. And I texted you and Dustin,
Yes.
and I was like, this better be for Emmett Warry.
And it
There's
was.
no way it's not.
No.
And when they took him, I said, you got Cam Chancellor. You got Cam Chancellor. Because he drew Kyle Duggar comparisons and Kyle Hamilton comparisons, but he screams a faster Cam Chancellor,
Right.
which is scary.
It is. And so if you got Cam Chancellor, like you said, and the missile is locked in,
That's
there
scary.
there could be some body parts that get removed
Ooh, like
when
Jack
he comes
Tatum.
in there for a tackle. So
Like Jack Tatum with the Raiders in years past.
years past, that's right.
Oh, that's a guy who should be in the Hall of Fame, but he's not going to because he paralyzed a few players.
That's right.
Oh, it's a shame.
Yeah.
He was my favorite Raider.
I don't have a favorite Raider, just so you know that.
I don't blame you for that because you know you
'Cause I
have
was
more
around-
years ahead of me.
Yeah, I was around when the Raiders and the Seahawks were in the same division.
Yes,
And
pre
so it is
2002.
physically impossible, even though they're trying real hard to bring me over because, they got Geno Smith now and they've got, of course, Pete Carroll as the head coach. And so, Vegas, I'm sorry, Raiders. I actually have been to a Raiders game when they were in LA.
Raider
That's how
Nation's
far long
awesome.
ago that was.
Raider Nation is awesome.
Yeah. You just, if you go to a Raiders game, just so you know, don't wear the opposing team's jersey.
No, because they will fight you.
That's right. Because I went to, and this was in San Diego when they were there. The Chargers and the Raiders played each other, and a friend of mine had tickets, so we went, and there was a guy who got stabbed at the game.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
I believe that. Raider Nation is awesome, but they are
Right, but
rowdy.
this is in San Diego. You might want to,
Wow.
you might want to cool the jets just a little bit when you're, because I've been in enemy territory many, many times.
Yeah, I
life.
was there.
Okay,
I
many
was at the
times.
Jets.
Okay, and so, doing that in Raidersville, not
No
recommend.
good. No good.
Not recommend.
No good.
No.
Not recommend. Do not recommend.
No.
First round pick, number 18 overall, the most obvious selection in this entire draft when the Hawks were on the board. Greg Zabel from North Dakota State. Guard, tackle, center. He can play everywhere on the offensive line. Which just insert him in the left guard position, right? Because that's where he's going.
Yeah, at least for now.
At least for now. Yeah.
All right, he could be the center at some point.
He very well could.
Could be.
Which wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, by the way.
No, but if you're going to do that, you better make sure you've got a competent left guard. So
good
so
point.
that finding a center might be a much better option than that. So
good point. I mean, Oluwatimi isn't a bad center.
Right, but that's not the bar. It should not be the bar.
No, correct.
He's not a bad. It's like going to a restaurant and you say that's not bad. That's not the bar. Okay.
Yeah, I've been to a few Italian restaurants like that.
Right, and it needs to be good, at least good, if not great.
Correct. This was so obvious.
Well, I tell you, yeah, because as you're well aware, I was live on the Belly Up YouTube channel, right? While they're on the clock, and I thought that Tyler Booker would be available at the 18th pick of the first round.
Thanks, Dallas.
Yeah, and that's exactly what when Dallas picked him, I was like, damn it. And my wife was like, what's the matter? And I'm like, well, the Cowboys took who I wanted the Seahawks to pick. At number 12, I think that's too early for him. That's just my thought on that. At number
Yeah.
18, that would have been a much better, much more valuable pick to me. But as I did not expect there would be 4 offensive linemen off the board
Yeah,
early in the
especially the
draft. I
fourth
thought
pick.
maybe 2, 3 at the most.
Especially the fourth pick, too, with the Patriots.
Right.
With Will Campbell from LSU. Not a bad player.
Not a
Really
bad
good
player
player
at
at
all.
LSU.
Yeah.
Really good player at LSU. But Jesus. I mean, to be fair, the Patriots also having a left tackle since Nate Solder was there, but still.
Right.
But
So
still.
that was fine. I knew that they weren't going to get him. Right. I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that they weren't going to get the guy out of Texas. I knew that.
Yeah.
And so, but I thought that Tyler Booker was a legitimate shot guy at number 18. And when he was off the board, and then I was live and I was just praying, because the Seahawks have deviated, for lack of a better term.
Yep.
And then pick somebody, because I had my draft board. I had who I thought was at the top of it. I had, my offensive lineman. I thought offensive lineman's the way you have to go in this pick. But then I've got the wide receivers, and I had some other players all listed. And I thought, man, they're going to pick somebody that I don't have on my board, and I'm going to sit here and look like I'm a complete
Oh, my
buffoon.
God. LJ Collier.
But fortunately for all concerned, that is not what happened.
Correct.
And they took Gray Zabel, and I was very pleased.
I was too. I think we all were.
Very pleased, and that came across I was very forceful in how I showed how pleased I was with this pick. They needed this. They needed this. And you could discuss whether the need or the best player available is the way to go. And I think that this guy meets both of those criteria. And apparently, because I saw that Gray Zabel was at the top of the Seahawks draft board. And so this worked out for everybody concerned.
Correct. And by the way, this is the 4th time, actually, no, the 5th time that the Seahawks have used a first-round pick on the offensive line. The last one being Charles Cross. Before that, Jermaine Ifedi. Before that, James Carpenter. And then before that, Russell Okung.
Right. That's true. But he's the highest drafted guard since Steve Hutchinson in 2001.
Hall of Famer, Steve
Hall
Hutchinson.
Hall of Famer, no question. All right. So, and from what I understand, that Steve Hutchinson spoke very highly of this man.
He can move people, too.
And so I was all down with Gray Zabel, even though he went to North Dakota State. And I said this on the live, North Dakota State is not Notre Dame. Okay. It's not Texas.
No, but they are a football powerhouse.
They are.
In the FCS.
As you mentioned, I'm in the Dallas area. So the FCS title game has been about 20 miles from me every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And those more times than not, North Dakota State is involved in that.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I'm well aware of how great a university they are.
Carson Wentz, by the way, won 3 of them.
Yes. And so, but he allayed all any kind of concerns when he went to the Senior Bowl, unlike Shedeur Sanders, okay? And he dominated.
Yes.
As an offensive lineman.
Yes.
Okay? Dominated. Not just played well, dominated.
Which is key.
And then he went to the combine and he blew the doors off of several, NFL executives.
He's an athlete.
He's this guy is 6'6". Okay. 316 pounds.
Wow.
6'6". Okay.
Coach's dream.
It is. And so, but he can play. He's an athlete. And so he can play anywhere on the offensive line, which is key.
Yes.
And so I think they're going to put him at guard, which is where they need to play him.
Yeah.
But they can move him around. He's that big an athlete. So I was very, very happy with this selection.
How big is Charles Cross, out of curiosity? He's 6'4", right?
Hold on. Real-time research.
Real-time research.
Yeah.
from Kevin Wilson.
That's right.
He's
If
six
this is
four,
a
right?
few years ago, I would have known this answer because
Yeah, true. I think he's 6'4". Because I might have a prediction for you
okay,
after we get Charles Cross's height and weight.
okay, it's coming. Hold on.
Because internet.
Right,
Internet's a pain.
and my fingers aren't always the best. So here
Yeah,
it
I
comes.
hear you.
All right, so he's 24 years old, so we got that,
Yeah.
and he is 6'5", 311 pounds.
What are the chances that Charles Cross and Greg Zabel flip positions? Like Greg Zabel's your new left tackle.
Well, they both can play.
They both can play inside and outside.
That's right.
They both
But
can play inside and outside.
I think that if you have an established player,
Yeah, true.
let
Good point.
that ride.
Good point.
And so I wouldn't do that. And but these guys are practically 6'5", 311. Then you look over here 6'6", 316.
They're identical almost.
They're this is a mountain.
Oh,
And this is
yay.
exactly what the Seahawks needed because, as we
Yay.
all know, Sam Darnold, okay, I've got more mobility than Sam Darnold does. And so that's not saying a whole lot. And so they needed to get better on the offensive line. Otherwise, all these moves that they're making wouldn't amount to a hill beam. And that's exactly what they did.
I'm very excited. I mean, what would you give the Seahawks draft grade? What would you grade this draft class?
I'm going to say A minus.
I'm with you.
Okay, A minus.
I'm with you on that one.
Okay, and it can turn into an A if Ricky White finds his hands. Okay, and so but all these players, as I mentioned, have a chance to make it to the roster.
Yeah,
and there's
all
not
of
a
them.
lot of teams that probably can say that. Because when you get later in the draft, they probably just throw up some Play-Doh on the wall, and whoever it sticks to, that's what they're going to take.
Sweezy.
Right.
J.R. Sweezy was a defensive tackle, by the way.
And so, but I don't think that's the case here.
No.
And so I was reading that NFL.com, for what it's worth, which is probably not a lot, but gave the Seahawks an A minus on this draft.
What did Kuiper give us?
I have no idea.
Let me go look.
Okay.
Give me a second. Keep talking.
I wasn't holding my breath to find out what Mel Kiper thought about pretty much anything.
We're gonna find out.
Okay.
Sports Illustrated.
Okay.
Gave them Greg Zabel's an A+,
Okay.
Evan Warry A-. Overall, A.
Okay.
All right.